Hello, everyone. I'm Phyllis Dickerson, CEO of the African American Mayors Association. Welcome to our Mayors Breaking It Down podcast. Joining me is my co-host, Mayor Van Johnson from the great city of Savannah, Georgia. Welcome, Van.
Thank you. Always great to be here talking to great mayors about great things happening in our country, courtesy of the African American Mayors Association.
And so today we have joining us the president of the African American Mayors Association and the mayor of the great city of Montgomery, Alabama.
All rise, all rise, all rise. The president is in the house.
Hey, it's good to be with y'all. How's everything going?
Perfect. And so, Mayor, just for our listening audience, tell us a little bit about yourself. We just try to get to know Mayor Stephen Reed.
Well, I'll make it real short and sweet. I'm a public servant, all those things that I think a lot of us as mayors are. But first, I'm a husband and father, three, and brother and son, and all of those things personally that I do, which involves sports, involves culture, involves history, and things I like to do in my spare time. But certainly serving as the 57th mayor and the first Black mayor of the city of Montgomery, known as the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement. It's been an honor. And this has been the place where I was born and raised. Moved away, didn't think I'd come back, and got back here, opened a small business, did some work with our lieutenant governor at the time, and then went on to run for judgeship in 2012 and mayor in 2019. So that's kind of been the path, but certainly outside the office, it's really about what do we do in the community, what are we doing with family and friends, and how do we enjoy life outside of this space that so many of us have to deal with as mayors.
Brother Mayor, it's been said that oftentimes we choose our destiny. But in your case, destiny might have chosen you. Tell us about that and the legacy of public service that you come from.
Yeah, it sounds like, man, you're referencing a piece of my book, First Best, Lessons in Leadership and Legacy from today's Civil Rights Movement, that came out last fall. I came in this space, born into it because of my father, Joe Reed, who is the chair of the Alabama Democratic Conference, also is the second in command of the Alabama Education Association for 40 years. And really was an activist, was a part of our first sit-ins in 1960 here in Montgomery with students from Alabama State University, where he was the student body president. So I think I come out of a family of activism, and as far as I tried to run away from it, in my adult life, it kind of pulled me back, when I got back to Montgomery. But, his public service, which continues to this day, he'll be at the Democratic National Convention as a delegate. He was one of the first two Black delegates starting in 1968 to be allowed to be recognized by the Alabama Democratic Party at that time. So he'll continue that streak this year. And, we just often talk about what can we do to help others and how can we use politics as an instrument to do good. And I think that's what, I try to highlight some of those lessons in my book, and certainly I'll talk about them a lot, and they're constantly with me as I make decisions in this role.
So, Mayor, you just became president of AAMA in April. And so tell us what your vision is for AAMA. What are your priorities?
Yeah, Phyllis, coming into this role, our goal is to continue to uplift the organization and the members, to provide, great content and information that they feel benefits them in their position, as well as this network of mayors that we have literally from coast to coast. For the mayor, I often say from Seattle to Savannah. I don't even include Montgomery in that. But I see, I guess if I went to Florida, you could get maybe further apart, but Seattle to Savannah sounds good to me.
I like that too.
So that's what I tell people nationally, and then across the board, from small cities to mid-sized cities to large cities. I think we're all looking to protect our cities, to utilize best public safety practices to help keep our communities safe. We're looking to expand our economic opportunities for those that are either working as entrepreneurs or small business owners, but also those that we want to attract to our cities and to our communities. We want to make sure that we have an economy that benefits everyone, not just a few people at the top. And then certainly we try to look at things like public education and how we can increase technology and how we can increase resources for many of our underserved districts and the staff and students and teachers, as well as parents that are part of that. So those are the major priorities that we look at. Certainly continuing the work in Black maternal health, looking at how do we grow foreign direct investment and bridging not just the national, but the international space for so many of our cities and our communities. And how do we keep those things going to continue to build wealth in our community, along with the health initiatives that we have?
Wow, you have a very impressive record. I mean, for the financial space, the legislative space, to the judicial space, and you've made history in Alabama. I'm interested about the weight of the legacy of an entire state that is so central to America's journey. And yet they fall on your shoulders. I mean, you represent the hopes and dreams of the slaves, so to speak, and those marchers in Montgomery. I just wanted to know personally, how does that feel for you, getting up every day, serving the great citizens of Montgomery?
You know, it feels great to represent your hometown. And I think it feels even greater when you know you're prepared for the task. You know, having grown up with so many of the civil rights luminaries at a time when I didn't appreciate being around them. I didn't really want to go to the meetings and the reunions and the commemorations, all those things that as young people we don't want to do. You know, I hear so many of those sayings, whether it was Mrs. Coretta Scott King, whether it's Ambassador Andrew Young, late John Lewis, so many others, Reverend Jesse Jackson, so many who would come here and still do now, even with Reverend Sharpton, to talk about what the movement was about, the challenges they had, but also to talk about those local people whose names we didn't know, but who did so much work, who were in the background and who they couldn't have really made a success without them. I think that buoys me in this position because I think about, you know, the challenge that we have right now doesn't measure to what they had to deal with. And coming with that understanding, coming with that backdrop, and then, you know, really kind of fast forwarding that through, you know, modern mayors, certainly corporate CEOs and activists and faith leaders. I think all of that kind of undergirds my position to be able to deal with the responsibility and to understand, you know, to whom much is given, much is required. And, you know, that's where we are right now in this space, not only as the mayor of Montgomery, Alabama, but as the president of the African American Mayors Association, at a time when we have well over 500 members representing, you know, the 10 out of the 20 largest metro markets in this country. That is significant when we think about the Maynard Jacksons of the world, and we think about the Richard Arringtons of the world, and the Marion Barrys, and so many others, you know, who were the trailblazers in the 70s, Carl Stokes. I mean, I could go down the list here. So many that were doing it at a much different time. And for us to have access to corporate America, philanthropy, academia, as well as the foundation that is the Black church, the activist movement, it helps me deal with a lot of these challenges because I know I'm not in it alone. I know I don't have to carry the weight by myself.
But that being said, Mayor, do you think that we understand and appreciate the struggle or appreciate the road that we've gone through? I mean, you kind of really elaborately talked about that, you know, life for us had not been a crystal stair. Have we recognized enough or appreciated enough the fact that, you know, some years ago, we would not be having this conversation?
Probably not. I think that's, you know, probably, you know, human nature not to, you know, reflect on the foundation that's been built and how it was built. So we have to be reminded of that. I think that is core to our culture. I think it's core to our progress is to understand the history so that we don't repeat it, so that we can recognize the signs of when we are. So we have to remind ourselves and discuss that not only amongst one another's peers, but also to the elders who have been in this space and can talk about how things happen. Where we may see the sanitized version, they can give us the clear, unvarnished version of how things came to be. and, what the cost was, because oftentimes we just see the benefit. We don't think of the cost that comes with that. And I think that's something that, we have to continue to focus on. And by talking with one another and having the circle of the African American Mayors Association, both formal and informal, I think it benefits us. And I think it allows us to be stronger leaders who can produce better results for our respective communities.
So when you talk about this, like for the last 3 months, you just became president of AAMA, but there's a preparation period, like you have to go through mentally and physically. What did you do to prepare yourself for this leadership role? Because there's, everybody thinks they want to be the president of AAMA, U.S. Conference of Mayors, National League of Cities.
Yeah, well,
you're like, you know what this really takes. So, it's better said than done. But how did you prepare yourself?
I tried to do as much homework as I could. I tried to listen and learn from those who have most recently served as president of the African American Mayors Association, to those who had served prior to, those who had served as presidents of other organizations. I really tried to get as many lessons and takeaways as I could from, the good and the bad, the ups and the downs in the role, so that I could continue to work and lead the association better than I found it and pass that baton on to our next president. But that really involved, building a strong team, establishing clear priorities, and trying to communicate those things in an effective manner. And by no means am I going to say in my third month that we have it perfect, because we don't. It's always a work in progress, but that's how I tried to prepare, or to talk to those former mayors who are done and those that are currently in office about, what lessons that they have to share with me, and, what was some advice and counsel they could provide, so that we could continue to amplify our work nationally and internationally for what all of our member mayors are doing around this country.
Well, man, I was blessed to be with you when you took the oath of office to become our national president. And I noticed, and I was checking you out. I mean, you're a very devoted husband, loving and engaged father. I know the work you do at AAMA and some of our other mayoral and city organizations. How do you find life-work balance in all of that? How do you save enough for yourself?
Yeah, I think that's the challenge for a lot of us, in our positions, is you have to share yourself with the public, but you also have to know kind of how to guard, some of your time. And I think that's essential for, successful leadership, is to have those moments when we recharge, to set those boundaries and expectations. And you understand that you can't say yes to everything outside without saying yes to everything inside. And by that, I mean inside your own circle as well. So that's really how we try to go about doing it. And we're always trying to make sure we keep that balance as much as we can.
So how do you recharge?
I recharge, by getting to a quiet space, reading books, reading articles, probably read more articles than I do books, and then catching up with whatever other sports there is for the day.
Who's your team?
Dallas Cowboys. Don't hold it against me. Don't hold that against me. So I know what to expect. I know what not to expect at this point in time. But I ride with them because I've been with them forever. And listen, I just want one more. That's all I want.
One more?
That's all. I gave up on 2 or 3 decades ago. So, you try to stick with those things that really take your mind away from the day-to-day when you can. And, you find your family and friends in a circle where you're engaging with them about what's going on in their lives and how they're doing as well. And that all kind of gets me out of this space a little bit before, you pull right back in with some call, text, or email that comes through.
Right.
So in this position, as you know now, it puts you on the national stage, right? You're expert to all Black mayors, right? And so you are the voice of all Black mayors. And so how do you balance, like, Everybody wants to interview now. Everybody wants to meet with you. Everybody has a service they want to offer, AAMA. They want to come present to AAMA. So how do you basically say no? Enough is enough.
I tell them to call Phyllis. That's how I deal with it. I think I email. No, no. I think that, from our position, we respect the association, and often what, I try to say is, hey, I'm here to represent my members. They're certainly no different than we do in our role as mayor, right? I may have my personal opinion, my opinion as mayor, but as president, that's different. And we have to make sure that there's some balance there for how we talk about the organization, where we want to go, but also some of the core issues. In our opinion, mayors on different topics, in particular to kind of get a sense of what they're doing in their communities or some council they may have. I never want to be the smartest one in the room, and I never want to be the one who thinks he has all the answers. And we have so many great leaders that it's very easy for me to reach out to some of them. And at the same time, if I'm not available, like I did with Mayor Van, and he was able to, step in at a last moment's notice to speak to a group around sustainability, around climate initiatives. We try to do that too. So I want to make sure that they understand it's not just one person. We've got a deep organization of leaders across this country with various backgrounds and levels of expertise that we can also point out the work they're doing and what they can bring to the table. So you try to balance it again. We're still learning that a little bit, but I think that Phyllis, you and your staff have helped us a lot. I think our officers of AAMA and our board of directors has also been helpful. And again, those who have served in this role before, to be able to say, hey, here's something to think about. Here's something you may want to look into, or here's something that, may not be as relevant to what AAMA's trying to do right now. And that filter really helps us to drive our priorities and thereby our actions.
Mayor, you're serving as president of AAMA during some of the most interesting and strangest times in American history. Not only is this a year of a presidential election, as we tape this, 48 hours ago, there was an assassination attempt on a former U.S. president. You released a powerful statement on behalf of the African American Mayors Association. And I wanted you just to be able to elaborate a little more on the thoughts of where we are, where you see this community, and particularly African American mayors leading cities that have Democrats and Republicans during this very strange and interesting times that we live in.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up. It's a very sensitive topic. Obviously, we haven't seen anything like this in many, many years, going back to President Reagan. I thought it was very important that AAMA be on the record and be one of the first, if not the first, to issue a statement as an association about the attempted assassination of former President Trump. I'm grateful that he was not hurt. I'm grateful for both not only him, his family, but all those who support him, because I know what it means to our democracy. I know what that means, that stability is important in the process of how we settle our differences. It's something that is, mayors, we talk about quite a bit of, conflict resolution and de-escalating, the atmosphere in our respective communities and things that lead to gun violence. We don't want that to be how we're viewed, not only as a nation internally, but much less from the world, that we resort to those type of tactics as we see in other parts of the globe. And I thought it was very important to understand that for us as an association, and I think for us as African American mayors, we understand probably better than most that there's a different lens that's placed upon many of us. There's a different level of expectations that's there. And we know how important this process is, that it remains stable, that it remains trusted and transparent. And to have something like that happen, to me, was jarring, to say the least, and problematic. And I think it was a point for us to be able to really talk about more civil discourse in our society, in our debates around policy and topics, and just to let our members as well as the nation know where we stood as an organization to stand against violence in the political arena of any sort, and certainly to underscore the importance of not only safety, being able to have disagreements with the other side without bringing about those type of actions that some people view as their only way of being heard and their only way of being seen. That's what went into the statement. And I think more importantly, what I've seen from our member mayors has been very similar wording, but also very similar actions. And I think that sets the tone for us. And I think that shows, again, why AAMA is so relevant and important today, because of our members that we have and the type of discipline, the type of foresight and vision that they have to understand this moment where we are right now, not only in the country's present, but also in that of the world. And I think that statement helped set the tone for us. And I've been just proud of all the statements of our mayors and the positions they've taken and the actions they've taken in this short amount of time since that attempted assassination of former President Trump.
So, Mayor Reed, as we end this podcast session, it's been great having you, but we would be missed if we didn't ask you this one last question.
Oh, no.
We
no,
know,
no, don't, no.
know you are HBCU girl.
No.
You went to the amazing Morehouse and you pledged Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated.
I know she was going to ask that.
So my question, why Morehouse and why Omega?
Alphas didn't have a line.
Oh, man. That's the last one. Okay. Morehouse stood out to me as a place not only where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Attended and graduated, but also as a place where I thought had a unique culture where I could find my footing as a young Black man growing up here. And although I had my father and strong father figures, uncles, coaches, teachers, church deacons, just around the board, I still wanted that foundation. And my brother, a few years older than I am, went to Morehouse and did not want to go, went reluctantly. But there are two things that stood out about Morehouse that I remember when he was being, I guess, kind of recruited or was considering Morehouse, was an alum who told both of us, I was just in about 8th grade at the time, but I was there on the trip with him, that if you want to be mediocre, go somewhere else. Morehouse is for men who seek excellence. And I just had never heard somebody say, don't come here. Right? I used to people saying, no, we want you to come. And his point was, if you want to be mediocre, average, go somewhere else. This is for people who want to be excellent. So that just always, stood with me. And then as, my brother continued to kind of think about it, I remember my dad saying, well, Morehouse is good enough for Martin Luther King Jr. This is good enough for you. And that always, stuck with me as I was making my decision. And it didn't hurt that it was in the city of Atlanta. And there are all these beautiful young ladies at Spelman College and Clark Atlanta University and Morris Brown at the time. And so, the backdrop of it didn't hurt either. I knew I wanted to leave home, and I just didn't know, quite where. But it was that tradition, that legacy of leadership and men who had made so many significant contributions in medicine, engineering, politics, academia, business, this across the board that I found to be very attractive. Now, it relates to the greatest fraternity of them all, the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. It was something that I grew up around. I grew up 2 blocks from my father's chapter, Gamma Sigma chapter at Alabama State University. So I don't, people say you didn't have a choice because of your dad. I had a choice not because of my dad. I just had grown up so close to that campus where I still live to this day, in the neighborhood that I had just been around. Although I had cousins who pledged all the other fraternities, I found Omega Psi Phi to be one that connected more for me, whether it was the Reverend Jacksons of the world or the late great Ronald McNairs or the Dr. Sam Nabritz and Benjamin Mays and Earl Graves, all these people, all these luminaries, I just saw those as being people that I'd heard about. Langston Hughes, just people, you had heard about and read about that I connected with. And having that sense of connectivity at a very, very early age. Now, look, they made us pick up the trash. They made us do all the work at the time with the grad chapters. So we're the little guys that were there just kind of, happy to be there. We got a hot dog and hamburger, but really we was there to kind of be the props and then to do some of the work. But all of those things, I guess kind of drove me to that decision. And it's one that in a family full of diverse choices and Greek letter organizations, we always have a lot of fun with cousins that are part of the other brotherhood of the Divine Nine. So that's a little bit about what led me to it. And both choices have been two of the best that I've made in my life, and two that I'm glad I decided to make, and one that continue to stick with me, to this day. So I appreciate that question. I wasn't expecting that, but I appreciate it.
I knew it was coming. Phyllis loves the cue, so.
That's right.
So thank you, Mayor Reed, for joining us today for our Mayor's Breaking It Down podcast. We look forward to having you again on the podcast very soon.
Thank you for your leadership, Mayor. Thank you for leading us in such a dignified and excellent way.
I thank y'all for all the great work. Appreciate the support. And we'll keep leading and we'll keep putting AAMA in places where we need to be to represent not only our member mayors, but our respective communities.